Apparently, we're not supposed to eat bread in India anymore. And unfortunately, while it's easy to scare people in less than 90 seconds, it takes longer to unscare. So bear with me. It's only fair that we start by recognizing the facts that we can all agree on. 1. Industrially produced bread is and was never a nutrient-dense food. It was a staple carbohydrate designed for convenience, originally for factory workers, particularly women who did not have time to cook in the morning. Number 2, overconsumption of grains, be it wheat or rice, refined or unrefined, plus physically inactive and stressful lifestyles is associated with modern problems like heart disease and diabetes. So just saying, I will not eat any maida is not going to fix all your problems. It's a common tactic to call maida a poison and by extension, any bread a poison. This is a silly and misguided position to take. It's a good example of taking a narrowly true statement. Refined carbohydrates are not very healthy. And then building a house, no skyscraper of cards with it. Of course, no one is asking you to eat only bread and nothing else. I mean, who just eats bread? You don't add butter, cheese, or vegetables. Yes, maida is refined wheat and has no fiber. And you must absolutely pay attention to how much you consume it in your diet. But have you wondered why they refine it? It is the single most widely consumed form of wheat because almost all bread, biscuits, and cookies are made from it. If it was so poisonous, why does the entire world consume it? 2 reasons. Number 1, unrefined whole wheat flour does not have a long shelf life. Refining is how we extend it and help feed billions, and baking bread is how we improve the flavor and nutritional quality of the flour. If we did not refine flour, most of it would simply go waste. Number 2, using the whole grain also includes anti-nutrients. Remember, plants do not want you to eat their babies. This is why we remove the outer coating and split dals, for example. This is true for wheat as well. Even then, if we accept that, of course, whole wheat is a better choice than refined wheat, let's not forget that every kind of bread is fermented. The yeast significantly improves nutrition. It breaks down starches. Of course, industrial baking is not going to turn it into a superfood. So people will say industrial white bread and brown bread in India is unhealthy. Sure, if you can afford it, buy sourdough bread. If you're posh enough, bake your own bread. But this silly desire to demonize anything that is a low-cost and convenient option is just pointless. Making mothers feel guilty for putting 2 slices of bread in a tiffin box is just ridiculous. Is that the only thing someone eats in an entire day? Are you going to deprive your child of every delicious snack in the world because it has maida? And have you tried baking your own bread with 100% atta? Atta is not designed for bread. The chucky milling process cooks some of the starch and damages gluten to make it suitable for chapatis and parathas. For those of you who are not in the tiny percentage of people with celiac disease or wheat intolerance, gluten is simply the protein in wheat. It is what gives bread structure. This is why most fermented bread uses maida, like naans or kulchas, or the base for your pizzas. This is why even whole wheat bread or brown bread in India requires a mix of maida and atta. Fun fact, most sourdough bread also uses maida. But the slow fermentation process improves nutritional qualities and flavor. And what stops you from eating your bread with vegetables and eggs, butter, or cheese? That will address all the macro and micronutrient shortages in maida. Who says you have to get all your nutrients from every single ingredient? You don't just eat plain rice, do you? I mean, how silly would it be if I make a reel saying all rice in India is unhealthy, it's polished and lacks fiber? The way we deal with rice is to eat raw rice in dishes like pulao and biryani, and parboiled rice, which is more micronutrient rich, on a more regular basis. And we eat it with dal and vegetables, dairy and meat. Do the same with bread. Eat more whole wheat bread and eat more vegetables with white bread. Now let's get to additives. Again, If you have access to and can afford fresh baked bread from a bakery, go for it. But it will not last very long. And if you eat a lot of it because you don't want it to spoil, that is far worse than eating white bread moderately over a longer period of time. And eating bread that has attracted mold is way more dangerous than the tiny and insignificant amount of preservatives added to it to extend its shelf life. And by the way, when mold is visible, it means that the spores have actually formed quite a while back. Let's get to color. Yes, brown bread uses 150A, which is the brown color that comes from heating sugar. It's everywhere. Even tea has it. Just because it's also used in Coke or Pepsi doesn't make it dangerous. Lime peels and cinnamon are also used in making cola. So do they become dangerous? If anything, its wide use speaks to the fact that in the tiny quantities it's used, it's generally recognized as safe. So in summary, let's be sensible about this. It is good to read labels. It is good to know what mix of refined and unrefined wheat is there in your bread. It is also good to know what additives are added, how much, and what role they play. But it is silly to assume that refining or additives are just pure bad. They are not. If you can afford it or have the time, bake your own bread. It will be quite delicious, but not everyone can. It's a miracle of modern food engineering to make bread that can be packaged and last that long. There is no need to look down on it. It's a highly convenient and affordable carbohydrate source. Be mindful, not scared. Any overconsumption of carbohydrates in your diet is bad for you. True for rice, chapati, millets, oats, and bread. Focus on how much you eat and what else you eat with it. It's the full meal that counts. A slice of white bread is anywhere from 70 to 120 calories. Your daily food intake is close to 2 to 3,000 calories. 2 slices a day, 730 slices a year is not going to kill you if you ate 50 grams of vegetables with that bread. That's 18,250 grams of vegetables in a year if you're a fan of multiplication. Trying to find the absolute healthiest version of every single ingredient of food is a painful way to live your life. Understand that too much ultra-processed food is bad for you and let that guide how many biscuits and cookies, buns, breads, bhatura, naan, kulcha and pizza you eat. What's the point of life if you deprive yourself of all of those things? Just because you can afford an organic fresh baked sourdough from an artisanal bakery doesn't mean everyone can. And just because you wear a Rolex doesn't mean that someone wearing a Titan watch can't tell the time accurately. Please buy the bread you can afford. You can enjoy any kind of bread in moderation as part of a balanced meal.